Well, former U.S. President Donald Trump and several allies have been indicted in Georgia over efforts to overturn his 2020 election loss in the state.
Mr. Royals, everything went as it should have in front of the grand jury?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Ms. Alexander, you're prepared to take this? I guess I'm delivering it to the clerk. You'll maintain custody of it from here?
Yes, sir.
Grand jury documents were presented by the county court's clerk to the Fulton County judge, who for months has been presiding over the investigation. Trump is charged with racketeering, violating oath of office, and other charges in a bid to overturn 2020 election results. 18 others are also charged. This criminal case is the fourth brought against the ex-president in a matter of months.
The indictment alleges that rather than abide by Georgia's legal process for election challenges, the defendants engaged in a criminal racketeering enterprise to overturn Georgia's presidential election result.
The charges against Trump and his allies are outlined in a 98-page indictment. The documents list 19 defendants and 41 criminal counts. The indictment cites a number of crimes Trump and his associates are accused of, and also mentions an alleged scheme to subvert the U.S. electoral process by submitting false electors. Well, for more on this, we're joined live by Alan Lichtman, presidential historian and professor at American University. Always great to chat. We just spoke not long ago about the third indictment. This is the fourth in about 4 months. How does this one particularly rank against the others in terms of its severity?
You know, I thought it'd be very difficult to top the Department of Justice indictment, sometimes known as the January 6th indictment, but I think this indictment does it. This indictment gives us the clearest, most comprehensive roadmap of the extensive efforts led by Donald Trump, joined by his associates, to destroy our democracy, to overturn a lawful, secure election. This conspiracy centered not only on Georgia, but extended to other states where they tried to establish phony electors against the law, to pressure state officials, to engage in a conspiracy with a Department of Justice official. It's just breathtaking. And, you know, aside from the greatest crime in the history of the country, trying to overthrow our democracy, there's a real human element to this. I refer to the two African-American election workers who are the targets of the most vicious lies on the part of Trump and his allies, and had their lives, innocent lives, destroyed as a result of it, and were the subject of the most horrific stereotypes about African Americans, with that Rudy Giuliani claiming, you know, they were passing around thumb drives with votes on them like they were crack files. Just this whole thing is just so reprehensible, it's almost hard to articulate.
It's interesting that the prosecutors are using a statute that is normally used associated with mobsters in these accusations when it comes to, you know, conspiracies and ganging up together to keep them in power. But what's also quite significant is, you know, the transcripts that we have and have read about the, you know, the infamous phone calls where he was talking about, you know, finding those votes. How significant is that going to be in this particular indictment?
Transcripts, documents are of paramount importance. You know, witnesses have varying degrees of credibility. Jurors can make decisions on their own whether they believe all in part what witnesses have to say. But it's hard to get around recordings and documents that catch Trump and others red-handed in trying to overturn the results of the election. And that, let me stress that phone call with Raffensperger, the Secretary of State of Georgia, you know, who repeatedly told Donald Trump, you're wrong. You know, we subjected this to 3 different audits. You know, there is no fraud. There are no, you know, fraudulent votes. Not only didn't Trump listen to that, he threatened He threatened the Secretary of State, saying you may be doing something illegal if you don't accede to my threats, when in fact just the opposite is true. This is the kind of thing that ordinary jurors can identify with. You don't leave your life experiences, your common sense aside when you serve on a jury. I have no clue what their defense is going to be in this case, except the usual Donald Trump defense, disparage everyone involved, delay, and deflect.
What do you make of the list of co-defendants that are named in this particular indictment, some who were left out of the January 6th indictment just a couple weeks ago? We're talking about White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows and also, as you mentioned earlier, Rudy Giuliani.
Yeah, that's what makes this indictment different from any others. Jack Smith made the decision, I want to get this done quickly. I want to keep it as simple as possible. So I'm just going to focus on Trump and leave the others as unindicted co-conspirators. Fani Willis has done just the opposite. I am going to tell the entire story of this incredible conspiracy to subvert American democracy, and I am not going to spare those who followed the lead of Donald Trump. It's just extraordinary. You work as a lawyer for Donald Trump, you risk going to jail, and you risk losing your license.
And speaking of jail, do you think that the president could potentially face jail time for any of these number of charges that he's facing?
Well, I think Fani Willis made it clear, yes, that anyone convicted of this RICO statute, which you said is usually used against mob conspiracies, but this was a mob conspiracy. It wasn't a hit on some rival drug gang, but it was a hit on our democracy, which is incredibly significant. And she said there is a minimum 5 years of jail time, not home confinement. I don't think Trump would find it, or Giuliani or Meadows, very hospitable to be in a Georgia prison.
Alan Lichtman, presidential historian and professor at American University. We always appreciate your time and perspective. Thanks for joining us.
Take care.